Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Namrata Tuteja. I'll begin with today's topic, that is imaging in spinal tumors. I'll be covering this in two parts. So let us begin. Spinal tumors are divided into three types, that is intramedullary, extramedullary intradural and extradural tumors. In today's presentation, we'll be covering the intramedullary type of spinal tumors. Now, as this is just a picture representation showing the different types of spinal tumor, the green one which you can see centrally, they are the intramedullary tumor. This is the spinal cord, so this is located inside the cord. The blue one which you can see, that is intradural extramedullary. It is inside the dura but outside the cord. The red one which you can see, that is extradural type of spinal cord tumors. Now, intramedullary spinal tumor, as the name suggests, it occurs within the spinal cord. They are the least common spinal tumor type in adults, but most common spinal tumor type in children. The clinical presentation includes back pain or neck pain, radicular pain, weakness, gait disturbance or progressive scoliosis, which is more commonly seen in children. Now, what are the associations? Intramedullary spinal tumors are commonly associated with neurofibromatosis. Ependymoma is more commonly associated with NF2 and astrocytoma most often with NF1. Now, before describing the types of intramedullary spinal tumor, I want to give a brief about the cysts which are associated with them. There are two types of cysts, tumoral cyst and non-tumoral cyst. Syringomyelia occurs approximately in 50% of the intramedullary tumor, most commonly seen with hemangioblastomas. Now, in the next slide, we'll discuss the types of cyst. Now, as I told in the earlier slide, there are two types, tumoral cyst and non-tumoral. As the name suggests, tumoral cyst, it occurs within the tumor. Non-tumoral cyst are reactive cyst. So, they can be present either rostral or caudal to the solid portion of the tumor. What is the origin? What is the cause of origin of this cyst? Tumoral cyst occurs or are present because of necrosis, fluid secretion or degeneration of the neoplasm, while non-tumoral cysts are secondary to dilatation of the central canal. Tumoral cysts show peripheral enhancement and non-tumoral cysts do not enhance. Now, what is the management? Tumoral cyst needs to be resected with the solid portion of the tumor, while in non-tumoral cysts, they usually resolve once the neoplasm is resected. So, they can either be aspirated, they need not to be removed separately. Once the primary neoplasm is removed, the solid portion is removed, they automatically resolve. Now, intramedullary spinal tumors can be divided into two types, that is neoplastic lesions and benign lesions. Neoplastic lesions include glial neoplasm or non-glial neoplasm. Among the glial neoplasm, we have spinal ependymoma, spinal astrocytoma and spinal ganglioglioma. The non-glial neoplasm includes spinal hemangioblastoma, spinal paraganglioma, intramedullary metastasis and primary lymphoma of the spinal cord. The benign lesions are spinal canal epidermoid cyst and spinal canal lipoma. So, we will be discussing the more common one type of intramedullary spinal cord tumor. So, these are the three most common. The green one which you can see, it is seen centrally, that is at the region of central canal, that is ependymoma. The red one is astrocytoma, which is located eccentrically, and the small blue one which you can see in the dorsal subpile surface is the hemangioblastoma. These are the usual location of these three most common type of intramedullary spinal cord tumors. Now, when we begin with ependymoma, they are the most common primary spinal cord tumor in adults, whereas in children, astrocytoma is the most common. So, ependymoma, the peak incidence is between 4th to 5th decade. Location wise, they are more commonly seen in the cervical cord, then in thoracic and then in conus medullaris. As the name suggests, it originates from the ependymal lining of the central canal of the spinal cord. Now, we'll start with the imaging features. On CT, we can see scoliosis and non-aggressive bone remodeling. MRI is the investigation of choice. So, what are the sequences which we should take? The basic sequences include sagittal T1 and T2 weighted imaging, STIR sequence, SWI sequence to see for any hemorrhage, diffusion weighted imaging, axial T1, T2 and SWI, then post-gadolinium or post-contrast sagittal and axial T1 with fat suppression. Additional sequences which we can take are diffusion tensor imaging, MR spectroscopy, MR perfusion, which can help better characterize the lesions. So, now we'll talk about ependymoma. The ependymoma, it usually involves 4 vertebral segments and that is an average of 4 vertebral segment, but cord edema can extend beyond the margins. On T1 they are usually ISO 2 hypointense, and on T2 sequences they are usually hyperintense. Most of the ependymomas, that is around 90%, enhance after contrast administration, and they usually show well defined margins and homogeneous enhancement. They do not show any restriction on diffusion weighted imaging. Ependymomas can be frequently present with hemorrhage, and that hemorrhage can be seen as cap sign on the rostral or the caudal margins. Another feature is that ependymomas, they tend to displace the white matter. They do not destroy or infiltrate, unlike astrocytomas. Okay, now this is an example we can see over here. This is sagittal, T2 sagittal image. This is post contrast T1 fat set sequence. So on post contrast T1 fat set, we can see a homogeneously enhancing well defined lesion in the cervical cord, which is nearly ISO to mildly hyperintense on T2 sequence. Apart from this, we see on the rostral end a T2 cystic area which does not show any enhancement on post contrast sequence, which means it's a non-tumoral cyst, so it does not need to be resected separately. Resection of the primary solid neoplasm will lead to removal of the cyst. Also, apart from this, on T2 sequence we can see associated hyperintensity, that is the edema which is associated with the lesion. This is another image. This another image shows a typical cap sign, that is T2 hyperintense area on the rostral and the caudal margins. That is because of the hemorrhage. So hemosiderin deposition. So it shows this T2 hypointense area on the rostral and the caudal margins. This is another case. This another case shows, this is T2 weighted sagittal sequence. This is post contrast T1 weighted fat set sequence. So on post contrast sequence we see this area of enhancement. It is little ill defined, and also we can see over here an intratumoral cystic lesion. This is the cyst which lesion around the cyst, also there is enhancement. So this is an intratumoral part of the cyst which is showing enhancement. On diffusion there is not much area of restriction. On DTI, what we can see? On DTI we can see that there is separation or displacement of the fibers rather than infiltration. So DTI can help us differentiate that it is astrocytoma or ependymoma. This is just one of the features which can help us differentiate. So on DTI we can see that the lesion or the tumor, it is causing displacement of the white matter fibers. Now another type of ependymoma which is more commonly seen in the phylum terminale or conus medullaris is the myxopapillary type of ependymoma. Its location, its typical location is the characteristic feature, and the most common symptom associated will be low back pain, sacral pain or leg pain. Now we'll talk about astrocytoma. Astrocytoma are most common intramedullary tumors in the pediatric population and young adults, and they are second most common in adults. So ependymoma was most common intramedullary spinal cord tumor in adults, and astrocytoma is most common in pediatric population. So location wise, thoracic part of the spinal cord is more common in cervical. As the name suggests, astrocytomas arise from the astrocytic glial cells. MRI is the most appropriate imaging modality, and they are infiltrating type. So they have infiltrating poorly defined margins. They are eccentrically located with asymmetric and fusiform cord expansion. Usually they span from about 4 or more vertebral segments. The average comes to around 7 when we talk about astrocytoma. I'll discuss that in one of these slides. Now what are the typical MRI feature? They are hypo to iso intense on T1 and hyper intense on T2 and STER. Enhancement wise, they show inhomogeneous patchy or nodular enhancement. Mostly they do not restrict on diffusion weighted imaging. Hemorrhage is uncommon, and on DTI, astrocytoma shows diffuse infiltration of the cord or disrupted white matter rather than displacement. Now this is an example. Here we can see this is T2 sagittal sequence and post contrast T1 fat set image. We can see an ill-defined heterogeneously enhancing lesion on post contrast T1 weighted sequence with a cyst which is hyperintense on T2. It is showing peripheral enhancement at the rostral end. As this is showing peripheral enhancement, so this is tumoral cyst associated with the intramedullary spinal cord neoplasm. So this need to be resected. This can be similarly seen on this axial sequence. And on diffusion weighted imaging, it does not show much diffusion restriction. Another example, on T2 weighted sagittal sequence, we can see a hyperintense lesion causing expansion of the cord seen in this cervical portion of the spinal cord, which is nearly iso to hypointense on T1 sequence, and it is showing patchy inhomogeneous enhancement on post contrast T1 fat set sequence. On axial sequence also we can see it is causing expansion of the spinal cord. Now, main differentiating features between ependymoma and astrocytoma. What are the diagnostic features and how can we differentiate them on imaging? So, total percentage of intramedullary spinal cord neoplasms in ependymoma constitute about 60% of them, astrocytoma constitute about 33% of them. Mean age of presentation of ependymoma is around 39 and astrocytoma is about 29. Cervical portion of the spinal cord is more commonly involved in ependymoma, and in astrocytoma thoracic portion is more commonly involved. Ependymoma arise from the central canal, so they are centrally located, and astrocytomas are usually eccentrically located. Hemorrhage or capsule is more commonly seen in ependymoma, and astrocytoma it is uncommon. Morphological wise, ependymomas are more circumscribed or well circumscribed, while astrocytomas show infiltration. They are infiltrative in nature. Enhancement, ependymoma show focal, intense homogeneous enhancement, while astrocytoma show patchy or irregular enhancement. On DTI, as we saw, ependymoma it displaces white matter fibers, while astrocytoma disrupts the white matter fibers. Average extent of lesion, that is vertebral body segment involvement, ependymoma involved on an average 3.6 length of the vertebral body segments, and astrocytoma involved around 7. Syndromes associated, as we discussed earlier, ependymoma associated with neurofibromatosis type 2 and astrocytoma associated with NF1. Ependymomas in NF2 are also associated with meningiomas. Talk about the third most common tumor, which is hemangioblastoma. It is usually associated with VHL syndrome, that is von Hippel-Lindau disease. They are more commonly seen in the third or fourth decade of life. Usually have male predominance. They are slow growing tumors and have a long clinical course. They can be intramedullary or both intra and extramedullary, or purely extramedullary, or even can have extradural invocation. They are non-glial, mesenchymal, capillary and venous ridge tumors. So when we talk about the location, they are more commonly seen in the thoracic segment followed by the cervical cord. On MRI, what we can see are well-defined hyper-enhancing nodular masses more commonly seen in the subpial location in the dorsal surface of the cord. They show intense and homogeneous post-contrast enhancement, usually iso-intense on T1 and hyper-intense on T2. If they are larger than 2.5 cm, we can also see vascular flow voids on T1 and T2 weighted imaging, which arises from the dilated feeding arteries and draining veins. Now this is an example showing on this post-contrast T1 weighted fat set sequence, we can see an intensely enhancing lesion which is having areas of hypointensity within. On T2 also we can see this flow voids. This is another example on post-contrast T1 weighted fat set sequence. Multiple homogeneously intensely enhancing lesions can be seen predominantly on the dorsal surface, subpial in location. So these are hemangioblastomas, and this can be a patient with VHL disease. Now the next type that we'll discuss is the spinal cord lymphoma. These are rare type of intramedullary tumors, and intramedullary spinal lymphoma, it constitutes only 3.3% of all CNS lymphomas. Mean age of presentation is 47 years. Female predominance can be seen. Risk factors includes patients with immunocompromised status, that is in patients with AIDS, transplant recipients, congenital immunodeficiency, or with Epstein-Barr virus infection. Typical MRI findings includes they are iso-intense to spinal cord on T1, hyperintense on T2. This is in contrast to the characteristic low T2 signal intensity that is seen in the intracranial type of CNS lymphoma. Enhancement can vary from homogeneous to patchy to infiltrating. There can also be leptomeningeal enhancement. Now, one differentiating feature is that on diffusion weighted imaging, they can show restriction, that is hyperintensity with hypointensity on ADC map, as they are highly cellular tumors. Tumoral cyst and hemorrhage are generally not seen, which can help them to differentiate from astrocytomas and ependymomas. Now this is an example. On post-contrast even weighted sequence, we can see a well-defined homogeneously enhancing lesion in the cervical portion of the spinal cord, which is nearly iso to mildly hyperintense on T2 weighted imaging, and also associated edema can be seen, which is not showing any enhancement. No area of obvious tumoral cyst or hemorrhage can be seen, which can help us differentiate them from astrocytomas and ependymoma. Now the last type that we'll discuss is the spinal metastasis. Most common primary causing spinal metastasis is lung tumor followed by breast. Hematogenous dissemination is the most common route, although CSF dissemination can also occur. On MRI imaging, there can be multiple lesions which are isointense on T1 and hyperintense on T2. There is disproportionate large edema, surrounding edema compared to the size of the lesion. They can be single or multiple well circumscribed, rounded homogeneously or ring enhancing lesion. We'll see few examples. Now this first patient is a known case of CA breast. Here we can see on post contrast T1 weighted sagittal sequence, multiple homogeneously enhancing rounded lesions are seen in the cervical cord, also in the posterior fossa. And this is another patient of CA lung. In this we can see a solitary rounded lesion with a little ill-defined margin at the rostral and the caudal end, but there is associated long segment edema which can be seen on T2 weighted sequence. So these two are patients with known primaries and spinal metastasis. These are my references. Thank you very much. If you have any doubt, you can please ask in the comment section, and you can subscribe my channel for further updates and lectures. Thank you.